It was October of 2000, and the Today Show was looking for someone to do a box office recap because Meet the Parents was doing really well. And they called the publicist from Entertainment Weekly and said, we might need someone, if you have someone. And she said, okay, I have just the person for you. They said, we might need someone, we might not. We'll let you know at 11 o'clock tonight. So I'm waiting up, I'm staying up, and the phone rings at 11, and it's her, and she says, you're on tomorrow with Katie Couric at 8:30. And I did this segment, and I thought it went pretty well. And then later that day, the producer of the show called the publicist from EW and said, we want that guy to be our regular movie expert. So that was 25 years ago, and I've now done that show 215 times, live segments over the last 25 years. And it's been such a interesting and unexpected part of my career. And I would argue that led to a lot of the other TV opportunities that I've now gotten to do, probably including TCM.
Welcome to Lead with Your Brand, the podcast that explores exceptional career success stories, inspiring and insightful personal brand journeys that answer the question, are you coffee or are you Starbucks? Fascinating conversations with leaders about their career breakthroughs from tech, media, and more. You'll learn how they've turned up the volume on their brand to unlock success. Firsthand, uncensored, and real, as told by people who've been there. And plenty of inspiration and practical tools to help you lead with your brand every day as you drive towards your next career breakthrough. And now, here's your host, personal branding expert, inclusion advocate, keynote speaker, and author of the book, Lead with Your Brand. Build your super premium personal brand to achieve your next career breakthrough. Jayzen Patria. Learn more at leadwithyourbrand.com.
Hey everybody, Jayzen Patria here, and you are listening to and watching the Lead with Your Brand podcast, which is the show for folks just like you who are looking to turn up the volume, show your value, and lead with your brand to your next career breakthrough. Well, it is an exciting week because it's all about red carpets and nominations because Oscar noms are coming out. And that is why I have an exciting and special guest with us today. It is my old buddy, Dave Karger, who is the TCM host and author of the upcoming book, 50 Movie Nights, Your Favorite Stars' Favorite Classic Films. But before we get to Dave, I want to talk a little bit about your brand. Now, you know that I am super excited because in 2026, I am going to be launching my very first book, and it is entitled Lead with Your Brand, Build Your Super Premium Personal Brand to Achieve Your Next Career Breakthrough. Now, as we get the finishing touches on with my publisher, I am giving you a whole bunch of great insights because inside of this book, I am walking you through my 5 steps to help you lead with your brand. Now, if you've been listening to our past couple of episodes, you know I've walked you through the case for building your brand in 2026. As things are shifting, you've got to make sure that you are not a boring old commodity like coffee. That's right, you've got to be a super premium brand like Starbucks. In our last episode, I walked you through our first step where you focused all about defining your audience and figuring out how you can super serve your super fans to help you build your brand. Now, here we are, and we're going to talk all about step number 2. It is that you've got to know what you stand for today, because you have got to be uniquely you. So roll up your sleeves and get ready to focus on step number 2, because we are going to help you lead with your brand to your next career breakthrough here in 2026. Now, I will tell you, I have folks coming to me for executive coaching and brand building all of the time, and those folks say things to me like, oh, Jayzen, I want my brand to just be like Sheryl Sandberg, or I want my brand to be just like the CEO at my company, or my favorite one is I want my brand to be like Oprah Winfrey. And you know what I say? You ain't Oprah, and you are never going to be her, because there is only one Oprah, and guess what? There is only one you. What we want you to be is you, and be the best you can be. This is where authenticity comes into play. Now, if you've listened to me before, you know I hate it when people walk around saying they're authentic, because it's really a question of not being authentic. It's about being authentically what? Right? What makes you authentically you? And I love to say it's more about what makes you uniquely you. What makes you different from the other people who might have your job title or work in your same department or have the same background as you? In fact, here's the dirty little secret. Where you went to school, all of those diplomas you have, those certificates you have, guess what? Nobody cares about that anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you spent a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and probably even more money getting that great education. But guess what? That was just your ticket to play. Those are the eligibility requirements for the job that you have and the jobs that you are looking for. Because where you went to school doesn't really differentiate you once you're in a company or once you've moved past that very basic early career level. And let's face it, I know that you went to school with some folks that have the exact same degree as you, that exact same diploma, or those exact same certifications that you might have, that if their resume or CV came across your boss's desk, you would walk in there and say, do not hire this person. They are not a good fit. They are not good people. But guess what? On paper, they have the exact same thing as you do. Because here's the reality about your brand. How you operate is what really defines how you lead with your brand. Let me say that again. How you operate, how you show up, what people see you do, and what people hear you say is what really defines how you lead with your brand. Now, remember a couple of weeks ago when I was walking through the basics of branding, we talked all about how your brand isn't about like what you wear and logos and all of those different types of things. This is what it's really about. It is how you operate. Now, one of the brands that people always say to me that they love is Nike. And guess what? I love Nike, and I think Nike's a great example of this, right? Because it can be easy to say, well, Nike sells tennis shoes, right? Or if we pull back, we can say Nike sells athletic wear. But what if I challenged you and said, that's not what Nike really sells? What if I asked you to identify what Nike was really all about? If you think about it, Nike is really all about winning and competition and athleticism and doing your best, personal best, about overcoming obstacles, about standing up for what you believe in. Nike is all about you finding the athlete in you. So guess what? When we think about it, that's what Nike is really selling, and they just do it by selling athletic wear, right? That is actually the brand DNA that makes Nike uniquely Nike. And suddenly, all of these things make sense, right? Because what we're talking about is how can you define your brand DNA? And how does that brand DNA inform all of these great things, right? It informs that Nike has got a swoosh. It feels like it's moving forward. That tagline, just do it, feels like motion and athleticism and winning in competition. Even advertisements, right, even ones that might be considered controversial at times, right, really aren't, because they are truly uniquely Nike. And even an ad campaign like the one with Colin Kaepernick was all about athleticism and overcoming obstacles, being your best personal self, and standing up for what you believe in. Even the product design of Nike, and by the way, those are my favorite Nike shoes from their Pride collection from a couple of years ago, all focus on bringing that brand DNA to life in a product. And that's what I want you to focus on, right? All of those other things can be like trimmings. They're the output. but they've got to be based on what makes you uniquely you, or as what I'm going to call your brand DNA. So now is where we want to flip it. Let's learn from Nike, and I want you to ask yourself, what words describe you? How would you describe yourself? How might others truly describe you? What is your brand DNA that makes you uniquely you? Now, I know this can be a little bit tough, right? It's easy for us to look out at products and the things that we love and the things we buy online and describe them. It's a little more difficult to turn the mirror onto ourselves. So let's do a fun little activity that great marketers might do, right? To really get the creative juices flowing. My question for you is, if you were a type of car, what type of car would you be, right? If you were a type of car, what type of car would you be? Well, let me give you an example. If you know me, you know I love Jeep Wranglers. I have only driven Jeep Wranglers for the past 25 years. I have been obsessed with Jeep Wranglers since I was in high school, and my friend Megan Larson had a fabulous soft top white Jeep Wrangler, right? Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, Jayzen, you like Jeep Wranglers, but you don't seem too rugged, you don't seem too butch, you don't seem too outdoorsy, you don't seem too mud flaps and going out driving through a swamp. And guess what? You are 100% right. Because that's not the type of Jeep Wrangler I am. You know what the type of Jeep Wrangler I am? I am like the Jeep Wrangler that Cher drove in the movie Clueless, driving around Beverly Hills and Bel Air with her fabulous friend Dion, wearing crazy outfits with big hats and fuzzy purses. You know why? Because I am fast, I am fun, and I'm a little bit showy. This is the type of Jeep Wrangler that I am. And by the way, this was the Jeep Wrangler that my friend Megan Larson drove in high school. So I want you to think, what type of car are you? And how would you describe yourself that way? How do you show up that way so that you can identify some of those words and adjectives and descriptors that really describe you? So what are those words that describe you? Now, let me tell you a fun little story. I was speaking at a big convention center, huge audience. I asked this question, and a woman raised her hand. I ran out into the crowd. She grabbed the microphone and she said, "Jayzen, I am a beat up old station wagon." And guess what? 1,000 people laughed at this woman. She grabbed the microphone back and she said, "No, stop, stop, stop. Everybody stop laughing, because I am proud to be a beat up old station wagon." She said, "You know what, when I look around here, I'm not young and spunky like so many of you. I'm not cool and sexy, right? I've been around the block a few times, and I've got the fender benders and the dents and the dings to prove it. But you know what? That doesn't matter, because I've got 5 big cab doors on my station wagon, and I open up all of those doors and I welcome everybody inside, and I can get you from New York to San Francisco safely and reliably, because that's the kind of car that I am." And the room was silent. And suddenly everybody stood up and gave this woman a standing ovation, because in less than 60 seconds, she was able to truly define what made her uniquely her, right? She was able to say how she stood out from the crowd. And by the way, it wasn't about being flashy. It was about being grounded. It was about being inclusive, welcoming, road tested, safe, and reliable. So I want you to think about the words that describe you. In fact, here's your homework. I want you to put pen to paper. In fact, maybe grab a pad of Post-its and a Sharpie pen. I want you to write down as many words that you would use to describe you. In fact, challenge yourself. Go back to last year and maybe the year before's performance review and see what type of words came up there. If you've done a 360 assessment within your company, go and read some of the comments that people left for you. What are those words that you consistently hear from those folks. But let's take it a step further. Remember, our first step that I talked about in our last episode was all about super serving your career audience, super serving your super fans. I want you to go out to some of your super fans and ask them. In fact, I challenge you at minimum to reach out to 5 folks, and I want you to ask them to give you 3 words that they would use to describe you when you are at your best. You should come up with a whole chunk, a whole bunch of words out there. And now, you know I love Post-its. If you have Post-its, I want you to stick them up on the wall. And guess what? I want you to look for some thematic clusters. I want you to come up with anywhere from 4 to 8 different word clusters where the words are synonyms of each other or they're similar, right? So if somebody says that you're fast and somebody else says that you're quick and you get another word like dynamic, well, guess what? I think those are all kind of similar words that people are describing a certain set of actions and behaviors that they see on you, but maybe with some different language. That's going to give you a great thematic cluster. Now, when you've got these clusters, guess what? This is going to be all about your tailwinds, because I want you to be like this airplane, this jet airliner flying through the air of your career on a path to your next career breakthrough. All of these great words, all of these great descriptors, these are those tailwinds. When people know you for those things, when they describe you that way, when they tell other people that you are that way, that helps you get quicker to your end destination. It helps you have a shortcut with people, and it gives people a shortcut with you that they know you're the go-to person for that, which means you can spend less energy to get to those end destinations faster. I want you to come up with 4 to 8 descriptor word clusters that are your tailwind words. Now, when we think about tailwinds, guess what? There are also headwinds. Those are those things that drag you back. They slow you down. They make you less efficient. And when we think about your brand, every single one of us has some headwinds that cause drag on your brand. So while you're out there asking some of those folks who are your super fans for 3 words that describe you, I want to challenge you to also ask them for 1 or 2 words that they might use to describe you when you're not at your best. Maybe when you're under pressure or under stress. Now, the important thing is for you to focus on those tailwinds, but you do need to define if there are 1 or 2 themes of those headwinds that drag you back, and more importantly, trump these different things. Come up with big 4 to 8 word clusters of those tailwind words, and then I want you to identify maybe 1 or 2 of those headwinds that are truly trumping and erasing all of those great things that are your unique descriptors that become your reputation. Now, words are great, but remember, we said that it was all about actions and behaviors. It's about the things that people see you do and the things that people hear you say. So when you get these great descriptors, what I need you to do is peel the onion. I want you to peel the onion because you've got to go beyond the surface, right? You know it's working if you get that tingling sensation where your eyes are burning, right? Just like when you peel an onion. You've got to get to the core. You've got to get to the root at what it is that people see you do and hear you say that they're using that descriptor. So if people said that you were dependable and reliable, that's great. But what are the behaviors that you need to replicate? Now, here's a fun little assignment, an additional piece of homework. I want you to pretend that you have just been cast in a new reality show. In fact, let's say that you've been cast in The Real Housewives of insert the name of your company. I want you to imagine that we have sent a film crew that has been following you for the past 2 weeks since we came back from holiday break at work. And now you and I are sitting in the edit bay. We're watching hours and hours of tape of you at work. I want you to identify, what is it that people would see you do and hear you say, some specific situations? What are some specific interactions that you had in a meeting with your team or with some of your clients or internal stakeholders? What was a challenge in a project and what did you do about it? Be super specific, not generic, because that's what peeling the onion is. I want you to come up with 3 or 4 specific things that you have done in the past couple of weeks that we would say, if we were watching it in a reality show, that you were safe and reliable and dependable. What are we seeing? What are we hearing you say? Because once you've got those words, you can define those actions and behaviors that become your cheat code, your recipe of how you can show up in every interaction, whether it's a meeting, an email, a training, a consulting with an internal stakeholder or external client. These are the actions and behaviors that you are going to repeat if you want to be known as those unique words. Now, there's some great homework for you, but I want you to get that done because in our next episode, I'm going to take you through the next step, which is all about refining who you want to be. Because guess what? Once you've come up with those great tailwind words, we are going to supersize those words and turn them into superpowers. Well, I am super excited about today's guest, especially because it is Oscar award season. I am joined by none other than TCM host and author Dave Karger. Now, so many of you know Dave as an award-winning television host, interviewer, and entertainment commentator. Now, since 2018, he's been a host on Turner Classic Movies, where he introduces classic films and conducts interviews with stars and filmmakers of the past and present. He's also made over 200 live appearances on NBC's Today Show, where he will show up this Thursday as part of the Oscar nomination coverage. He's been called, quote, this generation's mass media cinematic ambassador by The Wrap, and a, quote, beloved entertainment guru by The Hollywood Reporter. His first book, 50 Oscar Nights from TCM and Running Press, was published in 2024, and today I'm excited to get all of the scoopage and the tea on his second book, 50 Movie Nights, your favorite stars' favorite classic films that will be released in 2026. Now, from 2012 to 2016, Dave served as the chief correspondent for Fandango. That's where I met him when I was working under the NBC Universal umbrella. There he created and hosted the original video series, The Frontrunners, which received a Webby Award nomination for Best Variety Series. Now, before that, Dave spent 17 years at Entertainment Weekly, working his way up from intern to senior writer, and eventually wrote over 50 cover stories for the magazine, covering folks like George Clooney, Angelina Jolie, Elton John, and even Taylor Swift. We'll be back with my buddy Dave Karger, TCM host and author of the book, 50 Oscar Nights.
Is your workforce ready to take ownership of their career, amplify their impact, and show up as standout talent every day? Lead with Your Brand is the essential suite of programs for companies serious about retaining top talent and building a culture of performance-driven growth. Based on a real brand marketer's toolkit, this 5-step system gives leaders and professionals the ability to build personal brands that stand out, speak up, and help them drive towards their next career breakthrough. Ultimately declaring, in my career, I'm not a commodity worker like coffee. I'm a super premium brand like Starbucks. Visit leadwithyourbrand.com for more information.
And we are back. I am super thrilled to have our guest today. It is award-winning television host, interviewer, and entertainment commentator, Dave Karger. Dave, what is going on?
It's so great to see you, Jayzen. It's been way too long.
I know it's been a long time, and I know you are super swamped because it is awards season. We've got Oscar noms coming out soon. So, talk to me. What is new and exciting with you during this awards season?
This is a great year for the Oscars, I think. It seems like there's three movies at the forefront of the race, one battle after another, which is my personal favorite. Hamnet, which is also a gorgeous movie, and Sinners, which came out all the way back last April, but is still being fondly remembered and talked about. And I think any of those three movies could actually end up winning. For me personally, I love the Oscar season for many reasons. I love it because I get to go on the Today Show. So on the nominations Thursday, I will be on the Today Show live. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also on Turner Classic Movies, where, as you know, I'm a host, we do a thing called 31 Days of Oscar. So in the 31 days leading up to the Oscar ceremony, which this year is March 15th, so starting in mid-February, we do nothing but run Oscar-nominated and Oscar-winning classic movies for an entire month. And that's something that I always love hosting and being part of.
Yes, and we love watching you on TCM because I'm a big movie file and movie fan, just like you are. So, talk to me, Dave. So many people know you, but when you are out at an event, when you're working with different crews, when you're actually out on the red carpet, and sometimes there's people who don't know you, how is it that you describe who you are and what it is that you do to folks that you're just meeting?
It's changed a little bit over the last couple of years because of my main job now working at TCM, which has been about 7 or 8 years. So I say, are you familiar with Turner Classic Movies? And sometimes they say yes or no. So if I'm talking about TCM, I say, well, I'm a host, one of 5 hosts on this great cable TV channel where we show nothing but classic movies, and I get to introduce the movies and give little tidbits and also interview actors and filmmakers from the past and the present about classic movies. But in a more general sense, I like to say that I'm as you kind of so nicely said in the introduction, I'm kind of a interviewer, host, and entertainment commentator focusing on film, and a lot of the times focusing on Oscars. And I love the fact that I get to dip into lots of different places, like whether it's the Today Show or the LA Times, which I do a little bit of Oscar writing for, or particularly TCM. I just love being able to participate in so many different kinds of media because I've participated in many kinds of media over the last 30 years.
And so let's kind of talk about that because one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is you have such an interesting career journey. I mean, you spent 17 years at Entertainment Weekly, really in the print world, and now most of us actually know you from seeing you on TV or seeing you online, whether it's the Today Show or on a red carpet or TCM. So Dave, talk to me when you think back over your career, what have been some of the big career breakthrough moments that got you to where you are today?
The first, well, in general, my career has been very surprising. I never ever thought I would have an on-camera broadcast career, that I would be on television. That never crossed my mind. I didn't prepare for it. I never had media training. I didn't study that in school. I went to a very liberal arts college, Duke University, where you could only basically major in like English or history. There were a couple film classes, and believe me, I took them all. But as far as majoring, it's not like I majored in broadcast journalism or anything like that. The first kind of big moment for me was when I was in college and I got hired as a summer intern at Entertainment Weekly. And that was the summer of 1994. I was 21 years old. And after doing a couple other great internships at a PR firm and at MTV, where I learned a lot but didn't feel like it was the right place for me, that third internship at Entertainment Weekly was kind of the aha moment where I went, ooh, not only is this a great internship in the entertainment world, but I truly feel like I belong at this particular office, at this particular publication, with this particular group of people. It just was the perfect fit. And I worked hard to help make myself stand out as a summer intern. And I, really tried to be like, without being grossly overeager, try to make it known about my passion for different parts of entertainment. I did get to write. I had a byline as a summer intern, and I got back to my college in North Carolina my senior year, and the issue with my little quarter-page article was on the newsstand in the student center, and I was so excited. But then I did something that I is kind of against character for me because I'm not a very aggressive person when it comes to asking for things or trying to get things. I actually stayed in touch with the internship coordinator and I wrote her and I said, you know what, Annabelle, I know you have interns in the summer, interns in the fall, and interns in the spring. But as far as I know, I don't think you guys have interns over the Christmas break. And I'm from New York. So I was like, I'm coming home for Christmas break for 3 weeks. Could I intern again? And they were like, that's an interesting idea. Sure. And
So
they
you
let
like
me come back
created
in.
your own job, right?
I basically did, but it was a little bit calculated because A, I wanted to make some money and do something interesting over the Christmas break, but also I really wanted to keep myself fresh in their mind so that 5 months later, when I actually did graduate, that if there were any openings, I could kind of be fresh in their mind to get one. So I did get hired 2 months after I graduated. And this amazing guy named Mark Harris, and any true cinephiles out there who are listening or watching this will know who Mark Harris is because he's got a huge presence on social media, but he has
Yeah.
also written three amazing books. He wrote a book called Pictures at a Revolution. He wrote a book called Five Came Back. And most recently, he did the Mike Nichols biography, which was so acclaimed. He hired me as his assistant, and I worked for him answering his phone for 2 years, but also kind of tried to work my way up at EW. So that was a big one. And then just real quick, the last other kind of big moment I would say was when I got to go on the Today Show for the first time. And that was 25 years ago, Jason.
What?
I cannot believe, yes. It was October of 2000 and the Today Show was looking for someone to do a box office recap because Meet the Parents was doing really well. And they called the publicist from Entertainment Weekly and said, we might need someone if you have someone. And she said, okay, I have just the person for you. They said, we might need someone, we might not. We'll let you know at 11 o'clock tonight. So I'm waiting up, I'm staying up, and the phone rings at 11 and it's her and she says, you're on tomorrow with Katie Couric at 8:30. And I did this segment and I thought it went pretty well. And then later that day, the producer of the show called the publicist from EW and said, we want that guy to be our regular movie expert. So that was 25 years ago. And I've now
Oh
done that
my
show
gosh.
215 times, live segments over the last 25 years. And it's been such a interesting and unexpected part of my career. And I would argue that led to a lot of the other TV opportunities that I've now gotten to do, probably including TCM.
Yeah. And now talk to me. What was it like showing up? Because you have to show up really early for the Today Show, right? But what was it like sitting with Katie Couric? I mean, what was going through your head? Because this hadn't been a dream of yours to like be on TV, as you said. What was that experience like?
Well, they had been putting me on TV for the couple of years leading up to that. And, they would put me on like CNBC at 5:30 in the morning so that if I was horrible, nobody was really watching anyway. Um, And then I did do a regular spot on another financial TV channel that doesn't exist anymore called CNN FN, which was the
Oh,
CNN
yeah.
Financial Network. So I spent 5 years doing a weekly segment on that show. And that really helped me to kind of be comfortable talking on live TV in short sound bites. But this was different, as you say. This was the Today Show. This was the
Yeah.
Grail. And I was definitely nervous. And I actually have the footage. I even posted it 5 years ago on the 20th anniversary of the day. I posted it on my Instagram. And I watch it back now and I'm like, oh my God, that poor kid was so nervous. But I do think I was prepared. I knew what I was going to say. I had some jokes and I was ready. And it was super fast. It was like 2 minutes, so fast. And I was like, okay, that went, oh, all right. And then the great surprise was later that day, them offering me a regular spot. It was
I
crazy.
mean, yeah, that's incredible. Now, Dave, talk to me a little bit. Let's go back to when you talked about the internship because you said that for you EW was sort of like the perfect fit for you and you had done internships at other places that you didn't feel like you necessarily belonged. And I know so many people who listen, they're kind of looking for that perfect fit of a work environment. How did you know that EW at the time was the perfect place for you?
It just felt natural. It wasn't like trying to fit the proverbial square peg into the round hole. It was two things. by that point, I was a rising senior in college, and I had begun kind of pursuing journalistic things in college. I was one of the film critics for the Duke newspaper. I was interning for another campus publication, writing some music reviews for them. So I was getting more interested, and writing has always been an interest of mine. Not creative writing, not screenwriting. I couldn't do anything like that, but expository writing, things like that. I knew I had an ability to do that. So it was a combination of knowing that my writing style was a good fit for the kind of slightly snarky, informal. I was always told by teachers that my writing was too informal because I kind of
Right.
write like I talk, but that actually helped me for Entertainment Weekly. It was a good match. And then also the people. I felt like I was meeting people at that magazine, many of whom remain some of my great friends. This is 31 years later.
Yeah.
Um, and people that were just so dynamic, so smart. One guy in particular, who some of your listeners might be aware of, Jess Cagle, who then became the editor in chief of People magazine and had his own show on Sirius XM for several years. Just a great, great guy. He became something of a mentor of mine and a great friend. So I think it was a combination, as I say, of the fact that I felt like my sensibility was a good fit, but also my personality was a good fit. And what I quickly learned, and I listened to, I know Chris Witherspoon, and I know you had him on your
Yeah.
podcast a couple of years ago. I was
Yeah.
listening to his episode last night, and it was interesting. He said something like, you got to dress for the job that you want.
Yeah.
And I think what he meant also, and I would take it a step further, when I realized that Entertainment Weekly, I think this is the way it is in a lot of jobs in media and all over the world in different aspects of business life. You have to basically be doing the job that's above you, even though you don't have that title. You have to essentially be doing that job before you will actually get promoted to that job. And that's what I learned how it was at EW. When you're an editorial assistant, you have a couple of years to prove yourself. And then after 2 years, it's changed now, this was 30 years ago. But after 2 years, they would basically say, we're going to promote you to correspondent, which is like the lowest level of writer, or we're going to tell you that you're not going to get promoted, and we're going to tell you that you need to leave and find another job. They weren't going to kick you out that day, but they were going to say, we're not going to promote you. So
Yeah.
in due
You don't
time,
have a
find
path here.
yourself another job. Right. So what I learned, and I learned this many times throughout my rising up the ladder at Entertainment Weekly, because I think I had one, two, three. I had five different positions at Entertainment Weekly: intern, editorial assistant, correspondent, staff writer, and senior writer. I basically realized that I needed to be appearing in the magazine, writing as much as the level above me people were in order to actually get that job. So when I was an assistant, my name had to be in that magazine as often as the correspondents' names were, and then they would make me correspondent, and so forth and so forth. And that's kind of how it wasn't, again, in a calculated way. I wasn't counting, but I was kind of glancing through the magazine and making sure that I was, over performing,
Yeah.
if you were, if you will, so that I could make the bosses know that I was worthy of the next position up the ladder.
Yeah. I mean, you need to operate at that next level where it's just like obvious that you should be promoted, right?
Exactly. But I
Now,
never knew that. I just kind of learned that it's not like anyone ever told us that. It's just something that I kind of realized as it went on. And then the other thing I'll say just super quick was that I'm so happy that I remained open to any opportunities that came my way. Again, I never thought I was going to be on TV, but after I spoke one day at a meeting, our publicist came to me and said, Dave, you speak pretty well. Would you ever consider going on the radio or television to you represent Entertainment Weekly? And I thought, I never thought about that, but okay, let's try it. And that's what I was saying. She started me on the radio, then she put me on CNBC at 5:30, and that led to me getting more comfortable with the idea of public speaking, speaking in sound bites, doing live TV segments, which then I really do believe led to everything else that I've gotten to do.
yeah. And I love that it's really about you have to be open to those things, right? You can't just be so narrow that when those opportunities come, you're not willing to jump at them. Dave, talk to me about when you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Um, that's a great question. For some reason, I was obsessed with numbers and machines. So like, my parents have a picture of what I drew in elementary school when it said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And it was a cashier. I wanted to like type the numbers in at the grocery store, but now they don't even do that anymore. I
Exactly.
didn't
No more
know.
10 key.
I Exactly. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know what I thought I was maybe going to do? I was very serious classical piano player.
Wow.
My whole childhood. I started playing when I was 8, and I took lessons all the way through college. I went to Manhattan School of Music in New York City. While I was in high school, I did like a dual program for musicians. So when I was a teenager, I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do, was actually be like a professional musician. I think I realized at the age of 18, 19, 20 that I probably A, wasn't quite good enough, and B, I learned that it was a bit of a lonely existence for a true, concert pianist to travel around, and you're not really in one place ever. So I thought, okay, maybe not. So for me, it was always a question of, as a kid who was obsessed with music, TV, and movies from a very young age. I mean, I was sitting next to my Mickey Mouse record player at age 4 and 5, listening to my little 45 RPM records. How could I find a career that was somehow involved in the entertainment world? And again, Entertainment Weekly was my path in, and it was the way that I learned. It makes me sad that the magazine doesn't really exist anymore. It's a website now, but it's like a
Yeah.
shell of itself. But I feel so grateful that I was there for 17 years during the time where Entertainment Weekly meant something and mattered to people and was important, because I got to travel the world and interview Elton John, George Clooney, Angelina Jolie, Halle Berry, Denzel Washington, you name it. I spent an afternoon with each of those people, not just like a junket. I would spend like a day with them and write,
Yeah.
a whole big cover story.
And,
So
and you wrote
I
50
feel
over 50 cover stories, right? For
I
EW.
did. I did. And I can't even believe that I did that many. It kind of like it makes my head explode to think that I did that many, but over that long a period of time, I did. All the while at the same time, kind of also um, making sure that this side career of doing broadcast stuff was being cultivated. And because I always thought, like, well, maybe one day could I ever do it? I don't know. I don't think I want to work for Entertainment Tonight. Not that they were asking me, but I didn't want to do anything like that. It didn't really feel natural to what I was doing. I wasn't a gossip. I never wanted to be one professionally. So the question was always, what could I do? How could I find a place if I wanted to switch to broadcast, which I knew I needed to do because I saw the writing on the wall in 2011, 2012. Print media was just dying.
Yeah.
I knew I had to do something. And that's when I left to join NBC Universal, where I met you. And,
Yeah.
and
When you were
uh,
at
when I started
Fandango.
looking at yeah, so they hired me. Fandango hired me as they're called what they call chief correspondent. They needed someone not only to develop and host original video programming on Fandango, but also to take advantage of the fact that Fandango was now a part of NBC, and to go on the Today Show, Access Hollywood, and represent Fandango, which I was already doing all of those shows as a representative of Entertainment Weekly. So it was this great natural pivot for me to
Yeah.
go from doing all of these TV appearances as Dave from Entertainment Weekly to doing it as Dave from Fandango. And so that's what they got out of it. And what I got out of it was a way to pivot into not being a writer, but being an on-camera host. I don't think I was at that point ready to get a TV job, but the Fandango job was the perfect stepping stone halfway point to going from writing to television, because then I was doing hosting on digital.
Yeah. And now you've talked about, spending huge numbers of hours or days with different celebrities, big talent, and obviously on the red carpet. Who's a celebrity that you've had a chance to follow or interview that really surprised you?
Oh, Halle Berry was the biggest surprise to me. I got to spend a couple days watching her film the movie Monsters Ball that she won
Wow.
her Oscar for. And I was sent down to Louisiana by Entertainment Weekly. They said, go and spend a couple days on the set of this movie and watch her filming. And it was her, of course, and Billy Bob Thornton. And I remember, and at the time, she had recently gone through an event in her personal life where she had been in a car accident. Um, and there was some scandal around this accident. And I thought, oh gosh, Halle Berry, she's going to be so closed off. She's going to be very wary of a journalist, even though that's not what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk
Yeah.
about her movie. But I went down there. First of all, as soon as I got there, everybody on the crew was telling me, oh, you wait until you see this performance that we've been watching her give for the last couple of weeks on this set. It's something. And of course, she ended up winning the Oscar.
Yeah.
But when I when I met her, we sat in her trailer and had a long conversation, and then I interviewed her later. But particularly from that first conversation in her trailer, I was thinking to myself, "Oh, this is not what I expected." She was so engaging, so warm, so candid, so interesting, so open. Everything that I feared she was not going to be. And she was someone I just really connected with. And I ended up writing a cover story on her. She sent me the most beautiful flowers after the article came out. And then she won the Oscar. And then we had no contact whatsoever for 20 plus years. And
Wow.
then a couple of years ago, which I know you're very nice to let me talk about in a second, I wrote a book about people who have won Oscars called 50 Oscar Nights. And I called her people and I said, would Hallie give an interview with me for this book? And I described what the book was going to be like. And we did an interview on Zoom, and it was our reunion after 20 plus years. And we just reminisced on the whole story. And so she's someone that I will always have, even though I haven't seen her in person in decades,
Yeah.
she's someone that I will always hold a special place in my heart for.
Absolutely. And I can't even imagine the magic of being on the set of Monsters Ball, right? And seeing that and knowing that that was going to come to some type of special moment. So let's talk about the book. You have a great Oscars book, and I believe a new one's coming out this year, right?
Yes, so I'll tackle the new one first. So you mean this old thing, Jason? This little book? Yeah.
Right?
So Turner Classic Movies has a book division with a publisher called Running Press. We release a handful of TCM branded books every year. They came to me and they said, "Would you be interested in writing a book?" And at first I thought, I don't know. I used to be a writer. Do I still want to write? I thought I'd move past that. I don't know. But then I thought, you know what, Dave? You love the Oscars so much. I love books about the Oscars. I said, what is a book about the Oscars that I would want to do that would be different from some of the other ones that are out there? So I came up with this concept, 50 Oscar Nights, where I would do new interviews with 50 people who have won Oscars and get them to tell me all about the day that they won. From the moment they woke up to the moment they went to bed, what do they remember about that day? How they felt about it, how they decided what they were going to say if they won, how they celebrated, what they decided to wear in some cases, what it means to them all these years later, where they keep their Oscar now. So I interviewed all these people from like Rita Moreno, who won her Oscar decades and decades ago, to Julia Roberts, Nicole Kidman, Elton John, John Legend, Jennifer Hudson, all these great people. And it
And
was
so
so much fun to do.
I can imagine, and I know that you're not into gossip, but what's something juicy that we were gonna find in some of these conversations?
There actually was some juicy stuff.
Ah,
Sally Field was one of the best interviews, and she
ooh,
talked about winning her first Oscar for Norma Ray. And at the time, she was in a relationship with Burt Reynolds, and he was so unsupportive. And the movie had gotten accepted into the Cannes Film Festival, and she said, "This is all in the book." And she said to him, "I'm going to France." She'd never been to France before, and the movie's going to go to the Cannes Film Festival. And he said, "Well, you don't think you're going to win anything, do you?" And she went, "Oh, I guess not." Well, the movie, she ends up winning Best Actress at Cannes and ends up winning every single Best Actress award from every critics group, the Golden Globes, the Oscars. So it's like, so there are stories like that in the book, which are really interesting and showed me that, when you think someone's nominated for an Oscar or winning an Oscar, everything in their life must be just so perfect.
yeah.
And what I learned in this book is that for a lot of these people, Mira Sorvino, who won her Oscar for a movie produced by Harvey Weinstein, Barry Jenkins, the director of Moonlight, winning for Best Picture after another movie, La La Land, was mistakenly announced as the
Oops.
winner. Marlee Matlin winning for Best Actress when she's in a very abusive relationship with her then
Oh
co-star
wow.
William Hurt, who presents her the award because he's the previous Best Actor winner from the
Oh my
previous year.
gosh.
So many fascinating stories in there, and that's what I was aiming for, a personal look at the Oscars, not just the horse race and the politics and the movie studios, but what's it actually like to be under that microscope and to actually win. So it's a very humanizing thing, I think, to read about all these people. Meryl Streep is in there, and one guy cursed her out because she didn't thank him in her speech, and he was really upset and told her "F you," like while she's waiting for her car after the end of the night. So just crazy, crazy stuff in there, and I'm just super grateful.
And,
that
and
people were willing to open up.
and I love that you're taking this kind of personal approach. Let's talk a little bit about your personal approach with the Oscars. Why do you love the Oscars? And tell me about, as a kid, you grew up obsessed with the Oscars. How did that start for you?
You know what? I don't know how the Oscars flashed before me. It was 1985. I think I turned the TV on and there it was. And it was the year that Amadeus won. Of course, I hadn't seen Amadeus. What 11-year-old had seen Amadeus?
Right.
But I just remember watching the Oscars and I remember a few moments. I remember the Harvey Milk documentary winning and thinking to
Oh,
myself, there's a
yeah.
guy whose name is Milk. Like, what's that about? Well, of course, many years later, I learned all about Harvey Milk. I remember there was Anne Reinking, the great Broadway
Oh,
singer,
yeah.
singing the Phil Collins song "Against All Odds." Take a look at me now. And I remember thinking, why isn't Phil Collins singing that? Why is she singing it? Well, I guess she knew the producer of the show or something, so she got to sing it. Anyway, I was just really into the ceremony of it, the competition of it, the celebration of it. And then I started watching the Oscars and kind of obsessing over them every year. And then a year after I started working at Entertainment Weekly, they started asking me to write a little bit about the Oscars and doing some predictions. And I think when they saw how into it I was, that's when I got to really make that my main beat. And I went to the ceremony 7 years in a row, from the Titanic year all the way through the Chicago year. And
Great bookends.
I had a blog about the Oscars on EW.com for several years. And then, as I say, for the last 25 years, I've been going on the Today Show to talk largely about the Oscars, but also about, other kind of entertainment related things. And now at TCM, I get to do I put Oscar trivia whenever I can in my introductions. Obviously get to co-host 31 Days of Oscar. So the fact that I still get to be involved in the Oscars, from the past and the present. And as I said, I write for the LA Times, what they call Buzz Meter. There's 6 of us that predict the Oscars for the LA Times. So I love being involved in so many different ways in this concept and this tradition that I think is so important.
Yeah, and I love that it's kind of a tale of, like, not only having a passion, but exploring and sharing what that passion is, so that people can kind of tailor your job and tailor your role to not only what you're good at, but what you love to do and what excites you.
It's true. And I tell people that, like, whenever possible, whatever field you're in,
Yeah.
find something that you're truly passionate about and pursue that, because when you do, work doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
It truly doesn't feel like work to me. I look forward to doing whatever I get to do because it's involved with something that I care so much about that I would be following and focusing on anyway, whether it was my job or not.
Yeah. Now, Dave, I want to talk a little bit about your personal and professional brand, and we've felt so much of that through your own career story there. But talk to me, if you had to select 3 words that describe Dave Karger, what words would you choose?
I would say respectful,
Mm.
I would say reliable, and I would say prepared. And
Mm.
those are 3 things that are very important to me. Um, People often say to me, "Oh, whenever you're sitting opposite Denzel Washington, are you thinking like, oh my God, it's Denzel Washington?" No, I'm thinking this is a human being. He has a story to tell. I'm here to listen to it and to ask him about it, whether it was for a print interview back in the day or whether it's something that's on camera now. My job is to make someone feel comfortable and create a situation, even for the book, create a situation wherein they feel comfortable sharing with me things that maybe they haven't shared before in the way that I'm asking them to. And that's what I love about the books that I'm doing. And I can tell you real quick later about the second book that's coming out later this year. And with TCM, because with TCM, a lot of the times, a lot of the people that I'm interviewing are people who have been out of the spotlight for many years, who are
Mm.
now in their 80s or 90s. I got to interview Cicely Tyson before she passed,
Wow.
Diane Ladd before she passed, Mitzi Gaynor,
Mm.
Piper Laurie. These interviews were an hour long. And that requires stamina for these older performers. So to
Yeah.
sit there and create an environment where they feel comfortable and they feel appreciated is something that I know is a privilege to get to do. And I definitely think long and hard and make sure that I'm creating an environment for them to feel that way.
Yeah. And it seems to me that that whole respectful piece has been sort of one of your calling cards too, right? Like you said, you didn't want to do the tabloid shows. You didn't want to be in the entertainment gossip space, right? And so you almost use that as a filter for, even making job choices or individual choices of what platforms you wanted to be associated with.
Absolutely. And of course, whenever anyone wanted to take a meeting with me, of course, I went to the meeting. But I went to a couple meetings where, a new show was being launched or something was being talked about, and I could just tell. I mean, again, I wasn't getting offered the job, but if I were going to be offered the job, I wouldn't have taken it. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I look at it like a credit score. It's like we all have a credit score, not only in our financial life, but in our reputational life. And
Yeah.
I think like saying yes to this, saying no to this, what does it do to my score? If it moves it down just one, but it's a favor that someone wants me to do, I might consider it. But if it's going to move it down a lot, I'm not going to do it at all. So that is something that I'm very consciously thinking of. And I think it's when you have a job like mine, where you are quasi in the public sphere, that's very important because my career, the one that I've chosen in the entertainment world, lives and dies by the way I'm perceived, not only by my TCM audience or my social media audience, but people in the industry themselves. So when George Clooney's team needs someone to do an hour-long interview with him for Screen Actors Guild about his entire career, and they ask me to do it, nothing is more meaningful to me than that because it
Yeah.
means to me that I'm doing things the right way.
Absolutely. And I love this whole analogy of the credit score, right? Because it's almost like, our brand is defined by as much by what we choose not to do as what we choose to do, right?
It's absolutely true.
Now, Dave, talk to me. Respectful, reliable, prepared. Have these been sort of hallmarks of your brand throughout your career? Or how has it evolved since you've gone from sort of print all the way into being an author and an on air host?
I don't think it's evolved. That's what's interesting. I think those core words and attributes have always been there for me. And I think they've guided me through everything that I've tried to do. And I've always tried to just conduct myself with fairness and respect for everybody else because we're all in this together. And,
Yeah.
that's why it's actually interesting. My very first internship was in a PR firm, as I mentioned. And I'm really glad it was because I now know what it's like to from the other side, if
Yeah.
you will. And some people who are in the media think working with publicists is hard and it's always antagonistic. I think it's cooperative because we're all, looking for the same thing. But again, the surprise to me has just been the ways that I've been able to use my work ethic to in different parts of the entertainment world, and that's what's kept it so interesting. And like I don't feel like I'm burned out. I was feeling a little burned out at the end of my stint at Entertainment Weekly for sure after
Yeah.
17 years, but now everything still feels kind of fresh and exciting, and there's always new and cool things to do.
Absolutely. Now, talk to me a little bit about being around sort of everything in Hollywood, right? Like, because Hollywood is ultimately films are brands, the studios and the networks are brands, but the talent themselves. You've been around some big folks. What are some things that you've learned from being around very famous celebrities with great brands that you think anyone who is not a celebrity could emulate to grow their own life and career?
I look at someone like George Clooney, who I know I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, but he's my favorite person to interview. And I think I've done like 40 or 45 interviews with him over the last 22 years. And he's my favorite person to interview because you ask him a question and he gives you a funny answer and then he gives you a serious answer to the same
Ah.
question. And it's great. But I really admire the way that he travels through life. This is
Mm.
a man who is like one of the 25 most famous people in the world, you could argue.
Yeah.
But he just travels through life and the public and the media with such ease.
Mm.
And it might be an act sometimes and it might be real sometimes, but he just never seems to get annoyed or flustered or overwhelmed with things. He just kind of just kind of glides through and kind of takes it all in and is very present and very gracious with people. And I think that's a great way for any of us to go through life, always looking for the best, always looking for the positive. That's certainly how I try to live my life as well. I try not to let stress eat at me. I try to kind of be very grateful for all of the amazing things that I get to do and not worry about if something, doesn't go perfectly. There's always another opportunity.
Yeah, I love that notion of living life with grace, right? And being gracious there. Now, Dave, I know we only have a little bit more time. Talk to me about the next book that's coming out.
So, because the first book actually did all right, 50 Oscar nights, my editor, I can take zero credit for the idea for my second book. It was all my editor's idea. She said, what if you did a book where you talked to 50 celebrities and had them each recommend and discuss a classic movie that they love that is meaningful to them in some way? I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So we're calling it 50 movie nights, and it's 50 entirely different celebrities, no overlap between the first book and the second book. So I'll give you an example. Carol Burnett, John
Yay!
Hamm,
Ooh.
Paul Rudd, Scarlett Johansson, Sarah Jessica Parker, Jason Bateman, Tom Ford. All of these people did new interviews with me, chose a film from the 1930s through the 1990s that they love, but not they don't just love it, but it has a personal meaning to them. It connects to them in some way, whether it's personal or maybe with their professional life. And then they give me this interview about the movie, and the book is done. It's coming out in September. And what I love about it and what I loved about the process of doing it is that I quickly found that when I was doing these interviews, I was learning just as much about the celebrity as I was about the movie that they were talking about. And it's a really interesting window into these people that you've seen being interviewed a lot. Like you've seen Paul Rudd being interviewed many times, but this is a different kind of interview for him, where he's talking about his life through the prism of this movie that is so meaningful to him and how it's changed his life and affected his life. So I had a great time doing it. I got to basically call up all my favorite people and say, would you do an interview with me for this book? And it was such a pleasure to do.
That's awesome. We cannot wait for the book to come out in September. We could talk all day, Dave, but I have some final fun, quick fire questions to ask you. I mean, normally I ask people if they were a type of car, what type of car they would be. But I've got to go towards your new book and say, so what's that movie for you that is the iconic favorite movie that relates to you?
The movie that is the most meaningful to me, and it's actually a movie that's in my first book, the Oscar book, is Children of a Lesser God
Oh,
from 1987 with Marley Matlin and William Hurt. Even though it was very fraught and they had this very volatile relationship off
yeah.
screen, the movie itself means a ton to me. I discovered it when I was 14 or 15 years old, so a very formative time. I really fell in love with the two of them, and the relationship I just thought was so beautiful. And there's a moment near the end where they haven't seen each other for a while and they reunite at a school dance, and the song by the Pointer Sisters, Jump from My Love, is playing, and the director Randa Haynes cuts back and forth between the two of them as they see each other, and it's all the sadness in their face. And I keep it on my DVR here at home, and I always boot that scene up whenever I just want to get a little misty. But it's just a movie that I love. And then as I talk about this, this is kind of partly actually in the intro to the new book, me talking about why this movie is so meaningful to me. Before William Hurt died, I got to spend a night interviewing him over a 4-hour dinner about his career. Marley Matlin, I've gotten to know through the book. Piper Laurie, who's also in the movie, I did an hour-long interview with at TCM. So I feel really grateful that I've been able to, get to know these people who were involved in my favorite movie.
Ah, I love Children of a Lesser God. Now, Dave, we've been talking about your personal brand, but what's a brand that you're obsessed with? What's something that you can't live without?
Oh, a brand that I cannot live without. Well, that's easy. For me, it's Sirius XM.
Ah, I love Sirius.
I am obsessed because I'm a huge music freak. Like I have to have music on all the time. I make my own playlists on Apple, and I do that a lot. But whether I'm in my car, I always have to have Sirius, or they have an app that is really great.
And it's got
And
like a
I'm
gazillion
always
additional channels on it, which is what I love.
yacht rock soul.
Yeah, it's all, and they even had yacht rock Christmas music, which like changed my
Yes.
life.
80s Chill Pill, a great app only channel. All of these. So and then because on the app I can do stuff on demand, like Richard Blade does this on the First Wave channel, does a show called The Magnificent Seven, and I never get to hear it live, but then I can go on the app and listen to it. Or Alan Hunter, who I love from the 80s channel, he and Mark Goodman and Nina Blackwood do the countdown. I can, if I've missed it, I do it on demand. So that is very, very important. I would, if that ever went away, I don't know what I'd do with myself.
I love that. And finally, Dave, what's the best career advice that you'd like to pass on to our listeners and viewers?
Do you know, I kind of mentioned this a second ago, but I'll put a finer point on it. Become an expert in something. Become an expert in something. And if you can, whatever it is, for me, it was the Oscars and 80s music, and then in as much as you can, follow that and see if you can turn that into your job somehow. Because if you can, as I said, it will not feel like work. And in this day and age, with all the different media that's out there, I feel like people are always looking for experts on something, whether it's experts on childcare, expert on French cooking, expert on fixing a light. Whatever is your passion, become an expert in that and make it known in your circles or social media that you are an expert in that. And that's when things can grow into, I think, a career that you never could have imagined.
I love that. Be an expert and become the go to person and make sure that people know about it. Dave Karger, it's been amazing to have you on. We will see you on Oscar Nom Thursday this year on the Today Show. And
Yes.
tell us if we're interested in the book, where can we find it?
50 Oscar Nights is available now at any bookstore, on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble. And then my second book, 50 Movie Nights, I'm told is either available for pre-order now or about to be available for pre-order. So 50 Oscar Nights, 50 Movie Nights, they're both a lot of fun.
I cannot wait. And of course, it's Oscar season, so we can tune in to you for the whole month on TCM.
Absolutely. I'm on every Saturday during the day and every Monday at night. Those are my 2 time slots.
Perfect. Well, Dave Karger, it was great catching up and reconnecting. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Jason, and congratulations on all the hundreds of episodes that you've done. Well done.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back in just a few moments with my final thoughts.
For over 25 years, Jayzen has coached, trained, and developed thousands of leaders and executives, helping them achieve their next career breakthrough. He's a featured speaker at global conferences and companies to help everyone bring their best authentic self to work, show their value, and lead with their brand every day.
Wow, what an amazing conversation with Dave Karger, host at TCM and the author of 50 Oscar Nights. Now, if you love this conversation and learn so much with his career advice and insights, make sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button so that you can get access and notifications every time I've got a new show with a new engaging conversation. Now, Dave talked about so many amazing things, but the thing that really stood out to me was when he made that analogy about your career having a credit score, right? And he talked about that you're always wanting to make choices that help you improve your credit score. And it's so perfect because we're all always thinking about our credit score, right? Whether we're trying to get a car loan or a mortgage or any of those types of things. And the key is that you're always trying to have that great credit score so that you have leverage to do the things that you want. And you want to have a great credit score in your career because you want that leverage to go where you want to go and to influence the people that are going to help you get there. Now, the reality is that we're just not constant all of the time, right? Your credit score in your career is going up and down. Your reputation, what people view about you, goes up and down. What you want to focus on is making those consciously competent strategic choices so that you are driving that credit score up, right? You want to be in the relationship management business. Now, I love that Dave really broke that down because this isn't black and white. He talked about sometimes he does things that maybe feel like they're not strategically about something that he needs to do or has prioritized, but he knows that by making that investment in somebody else or helping somebody else from a big picture perspective, that's raising his credit score. I like to think of this as kind of like going to the ATM. You can't go to that cash machine and pull out money if you haven't made deposits. So remember, once you define your brand and you know what makes you uniquely you, it's all about managing those relationships and showing up in a way that is in service of other people. At the end of the day, your brand really isn't about you. It's about the people you serve and the value that you bring to them. So remember, you can't ask for something if you haven't made deposits in the relationship bank. So think for yourself, how are you being of value? How are you being of service to other people? Because you're definitely going to want support, help, and influence and amplification from others moving forward. Well, that's our show for you today. If you loved what you heard and what you saw, make sure that you are following us or subscribing to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. And we'll bring you great new conversations and lead with your brand tips every 2 weeks. Now, of course, you can follow me on social media. I'm at Jayzen Patria on all platforms. And I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, where I share tons of insights throughout the week to help you lead with your brand to your next career breakthrough. But most of all, and most importantly of all, please promise me you will not be a boring old commodity like coffee. In your career, I want you to be a super premium brand like Starbucks.
You've been listening to Lead with Your Brand, the podcast that explores and uncovers exceptional career success stories and inspiring personal brand journeys. With your host, personal branding expert, inclusion advocate, keynote speaker, and author, Jayzen Patria. Thanks for listening, and we invite you to subscribe, follow, and share the podcast with your colleagues and employees. Learn more about Jayzen's book, Lead with Your Brand, Build Your Super Premium Personal Brand to Achieve Your Next Career Breakthrough at leadwithyourbrand.com.